Yeah, I need to find the. You know what I'm saying? I need to find the live for Facebook. Okay. Live for. All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Let's Talk One-on-One with Uncle David. Growing up in the late 80s, early 90s, across the United States, especially in the inner cities, it was extremely challenging, specifically in Washington, D.C., due to the crack epidemic. It became known as the murder capital. My guest tonight lived that. He grew up along that time with challenges, but he made it through. He spent the majority of his teenage and some of his adult life in and out of the criminal justice system. But when he came home for the last time in 2015, he decided that I'm not doing this. I'm turning my life around. I'm going in a different direction. And he was determined and focused to make sure that he provided guidance and help in the community. He has now become a staple of the community. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Mr. Charles King. Hello, my brother. How you doing?
Hey, how you doing today? I appreciate you having me on.
And I appreciate you coming on. So what was life like in D.C. during well, let's start from the beginning for you.
Okay, so the beginning for me, if you want to talk about growing up, initially when I first, my family's from Northwest Washington, D.C. They from for a little bit, I say town. I'm not going to say all the way uptown, but most definitely not downtown. I grew up around the areas of Newton Street, 14th and Newton Street, okay. Red Oak, H.O.W.L Road, that area. My family lived on the street, which many not familiar with, but it's a street called H.O.W.L place.
Oh, yeah.
H-O-L-M-E.
I grew up on Crittenden Street.
Okay.
4th and Crittenden, yeah. So
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So my family grew up on that block, and it was generations. It's multiple generations. My mother lived there. My mom and them, of course, my grandkids, they was raised there. It was lateral across the board in my community. The grandparents moved in that community. They had kids. Their kids grew up together. Then their kids had kids, and we all grew up. I grew up in a pretty close-knit neighborhood where pretty much knew everybody within 20-block radius. I can remember DC, especially that area, which is a residential neighborhood. I can remember that area when people didn't even know the pizza man didn't even know how to get to our street, right? So I've seen the transformation. I've seen transformation. I remember before crack came in that area, they were selling both PCP, right?
Okay.
And you had a group of dudes up there called the Golden Boys. You had the Golden Boys back there. And that was the era that when I first came off the porch, that's what I initially seen. But in due time, of course, we know that everything transformed, and out with the old and with the new came in with the new ones, the new drug, newfound freedom financially for many. And not just that, with those things, with money and lack of knowledge came ignorance, right? So with those things, a lot of violence started to ensue. I've seen a lot of people, leave Earth at an early age that I knew due to the violence that came behind the influx of money, which provided people with the accessibility to more weapons. Because that's around the time the police department transitioned from revolvers to Glocks, right? So Glock was the new thing back
Yeah,
then
I
around
remember
that
that.
time, right?
They had
So that was the transition. That was the transition, and the reason that the police initially got those Glocks is because they were becoming outgunned by the guys in the street, right? You got a 6 shooter, this guy has a Uzi, or he has a Glock, or he has whatever. So I was growing up around that time. I seen a lot, I seen a lot, especially in my area. It was a lot of money being made. There was a lot of things that was being seen.
Oh yeah,
It was just like any other part
yeah.
of the city.
There was no part of the city that went untouched during that time. I mean, in every quadrant, it was happening, and it was kind of crazy to see it. And looking from the outside, for me, I was like, wow. But it touched so many different families. People that I knew were affected by it. Um, Either you knew somebody that was on it, or you knew somebody that was selling it, or you knew somebody that got killed because of it. There were very few people in this area that it didn't affect. Now, for you, how did you get involved?
Oh, I got a senior brother that's 5 years my senior, and with the PCP thing, he started off in the streets when that was going on,
Okay.
and of course, when the transition happened, like anything else that was going on in the city, people evolved into what was the market at the time. So he was in the street, right,
Mhm.
and I used to follow behind him. When I was younger, we went to school together. He had to walk, I had to walk to school with him and things like that. So it was human nature and natural for me to follow behind him. He's my older brother. We're living in the same house. That's
Okay.
one aspect of how I became engaged in knowing game. I was given a front row seat. The other side of that was majority of his peers, because he's 5 years older than me, and I really grew up with them. So a lot of people think I'm a little bit older than what I am, but I'm actually way younger than many people think that I am. But I grew up with them, so all of them. I don't know one that didn't get involved with the game. So they're like cousins and brothers to me also, right? So I was able to see that firsthand. And the flip side is I had family members who had became addicted to the drug, right? I had multiple family members and people in my community I had watched my whole life who had actually watched me grow up. It was like family to me. They were affected whether they started dealing or using, right?
Okay.
So, or if they wasn't dealing or using, I'll take it even further and go to the female aspect of it. Some of them was even dealing with guys that were selling or using from a female perspective. So it was everywhere. It was unavoidable.
Okay.
It was in my community. Like there was nowhere to go. So that's how I firstly, got my introduction to seeing what was going on.
Okay. Now I know when I was doing a little bit of research because I'm trying to learn how to get this interview thing down, and so I'm like, okay, they do research. So I was watching the guy. They call him Wall Street, and he was being interviewed. I think the guy's Sway. It might not have been
Okay.
Sway. He was being interviewed, and the guy asked him about being involved in the criminal aspect in the neighborhood, and how come, because they came from basically the same area. And he was like, well, I saw the same things you did. I grew up in the same neighborhood, and basically a similar neighborhood with some of the same things going on, but I was able to not get caught up in that. And as the guy Wall Street explained to him, if that was all I saw, that was all I knew. So if you didn't have, and he said he never saw lawyers or doctors. All he saw was drug dealers and pimps and things like that. So people say, well, you can't, how do you get caught up in it? Well, if that's all you know, and that's pretty much what you see, then sometimes you end up there because you don't, nobody's told you anything different. And as the saying goes, you don't know better. You can't do better till you know better. So that.
Um, I truly, I can, I can agree with that. I can wholeheartedly agree with that because the human eye is fascinated by what it sees. That's why trends happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
We see it right now, right? I can just take you from when I was on the street before I went to prison in 2003. Everybody was wearing jerseys, jewelry, rims on cars, clothes was way bigger. I came home, everybody clothes is fitted, nobody had rims on car no more. They're not doing the
Right.
big cars no more, right? You just want
Mm-hmm.
a nice car, and it don't have to be the big car. But before I left, if you didn't have a big Mercedes, we called that a girl car. If you pulled up in the CHARLESKING, man, that's a girl car, man. You ain't got the big, because that's what it
Right.
was. But people evolve with time based on visual.
Right.
They following the trend. Even right now, we can see it. Young guys tattooing in their face, and that was unheard of.
Yes.
The pill epidemic is in our community. Percocets and Xanaxes, right? That was never prevalent in the African American community. When I was growing up in the area that I come from, I never heard of that, right? So
Okay.
I say that the visual has a very heavy influence, because you're going outside every day. You seeing these dudes, they got these Mercedes, they got these Z's, they got these Porsches, they got motorcycles, they got all this stuff, and they look like they winning. So
Oh
as
yeah.
a kid, because you got to remember, even when you look at guys like Tony Lewis and them, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's been in jail 32 years, but he's 57.
Wow.
So like analyze that. And he was like at the top of the case. He was one of the older
Okay.
dudes on the case. So that means he was 25. That means he was give or take 25 years old when he caught that case. So his underlings would say 25 going down. So you had guys 18 and was doing those type of things. Just really think about that. Like it's not the equivalent of an 18-year-old today, but back then it was a city full of Tony Lewis's running around. There was a city full of guys of that caliber running around getting money. So of course they will be influential, because there's not a big gap in between the generations. If I'm 15 or 14 and I'm looking at a guy that's 17, he got a Mercedes and he ain't going to work, when you see him with this big old bankroll, why would you be looking at him?
It's only natural, because now it's videos. That's what the kids are watching, the videos. And I know there was a time when the videos would come out, and now everybody's a hustler, and they're this and they're that, and everybody's got guns, and then you find out that the people in the videos aren't really living that life. But by the time they realize that they're not living that life, it's too late, because now they're caught up, because nobody told them, hey, this isn't what they're doing in their real life. In on the video, they're talking about they single parent family, their moms, their dads ain't there, and this, that, and the other. But then you find out that they got a whole family, a totally different dynamic, but you get caught up in that lifestyle, and now you're like, okay, now what do I do? Well, see, but
yeah, I mean, it's entertainment.
Yes,
we must never forget that it's entertainment. It's no different than going to watch a Al Pacino movie or a Robert De Niro movie or Denzel Washington movie, right? But we don't take those out of context, right? We don't take those out of context. I'm not going to say that every guy that's out here doing rap music or entertainment is just the entertainer, right? Some of them really
do live that life,
that walk of life, but the percentage is low.
Mm-hmm.
The percentage is low, and the reason I say that is because you got people investing millions of dollars into these kids. They are assets. No one is going to be giving you millions of dollars a lot of times, and you're a liability, meaning that you're liable to go out here and do something idiotic, and I don't see a return on my investment. So, I mean, of course, some of them are really living their life, some of them aren't, but, I think the base of that, not to get off topic, I think the base of that is to really just, we have to be more grounded and hands-on with our village.
Yes.
I'm not going to even just say our kids, right? Because once you say your kid, then I feel like you're saying everybody else's kid, but everybody else's kid is going to be with your kid. But they don't realize everybody else's kid is hanging with your kid. So that's where peer pressure comes from an influence.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't care about a kid that's beside your kid, it's a possibility that your kid, regardless of what you instill in them, they can conform to what that other kid is doing.
Yeah. Yeah, because I know as a kid, my mom, I lived across the street from Barnard Playground. So we would be out there ripping and running and playing. And there would be some evenings where my mother would just gather us on the front porch. And we would just sit out there and just talk. You know, she'd gather us up. And I couldn't figure out why. You know, as a kid, you're thinking, Mom, really? Is this really necessary? But as I got older and I started to look back, I'm like, okay, those were lessons that we were being taught in how to form a village, you know, and understand that where I go, if I go in the right direction, I can bring somebody with me. But, you know, a lot of times we get caught up in the foolishness because it really looks good. And, you know, I don't judge if this is where you went and that's what you did it because you felt that's what you needed to do. And until you, like for you figured out, hey, okay, you know what? This really isn't the way to get, you know, I'm not going to last much longer if I keep doing this. So I got to figure out something else. Now, what was that moment for you when you realized that, hey, you know what? I gotta get it together.
I think that the birth of my son was most definitely imperative. His mother was, I mean, I didn't even know she was actually pregnant for sure when I got locked up. The night before I went to prison, I remember touching her stomach and saying to her, "Man, you pregnant?" And she's like, "I ain't pregnant. I just been eating." So the next day, of course, the next day I get up, I go out, I run the streets, I wind up catching the case, I go to prison, I never come back home. That was 2003. The next time I came back home, it was 2015.
Wow.
So that, having a child most definitely made me look at life different. Also, understanding how the world works. I think that, you know, a lot of ignorance, especially in our community when dealing with financial literacy, that we believe that everything is paid for.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If I get $100,000 car pump in the neighborhood that's underprivileged and where financial literacy is understood, they'll swear to God that I spent $100,000 for this car. Like I paid for it. A lot of them don't even realize how the credit system works as far as having a car note and things of that nature, right? Or even if you got a lease, right? You can lease a car and take it back in 36 months or 24 months or whatever and renew your lease and get something new. In the neighborhood, they're going to just say that he got that new such and such, right? And
right.
I think that I was financially literate, but I wasn't educated completely enough to be where I'm at right now. I knew how to do things. I bought a home before I went to prison. I had a home in Akaki. So I was responsible with paying a mortgage. I had 2 apartments. I was responsible paying the rent on those 2 apartments. So every month, give or take, my overhead bills just for 2 apartments and a mortgage was like $3,500, $4,000, easy. That's before any food, electricity, or anything. So I was financially responsible. But what I didn't realize about a lot of stuff was that I needed credit. The world runs on credit. No one cares how much money you got. They want to know that you can owe them and that they can pay you and you can pay it, right? And I think that I really got in the mental place of understanding how finances really work to let me know that if I got a 700 or 800 credit score and I got $50,000, I'm a millionaire to a degree. Because the only thing credit people want to know is you could pay that bill every month you got. Are you going to be able to make this $1,500 payment on this house every month, right? Then they calculate it based on your income. So I knew that I needed secure income. I know I need to have some credit, and I knew I had to be completely responsible with my credit. So those was some of the main tipping points for me when I was incarcerated, and I was educating myself when I was incarcerated on those topics. And what wound up happening was while I was educating myself on those topics, I just realized like I don't need a lot. Of course, everybody want, but I'm speaking on your needs. You don't need a lot in order to be comfortable.
Okay.
And with patience and in due time, once I started building my foundation, I treat working just like I treated the streets. No one gave me anything in the streets, right?
Right.
I started from Pebble and went to the moon. So for me, my mentality is if I can start from anywhere, if somebody just let me in the door, when I'm in the door doing this job, whatever it is, if it's something I don't like, as long as I got something coming in, I'll figure it out. Because with it, even though it wasn't a lot of money, my first job I took coming home was at Giant in Virginia, and out there off of Route 1. I took I think that's the Courtyard Giant. I think that's what it's called.
Okay.
Or right there, Potomac Yard. Potomac Yard. I apologize. I was working at Potomac Yard Giant, and I was making $7.50 an hour, and $7.50 an hour was actually nothing. I mean, you do the math. That's $300 a week if you get a 40-hour week because they paid your hours. But what I understood is I came home from prison. And I was in prison making pennies. I started making dollars, and despite me making dollars, and it was a low wage paying job, they did offer me an opportunity to stay there, but it was too demanding.
Okay.
But in the process of that, I had got on social media when I first came home. And I'm speaking on the overall of what really changed me. I got on social media when I came home. There was no social media when I left. There was no smartphones. There was none of this when I left. And I used to be posting from work. I used to be posting from work, right? And what I realized is me posting and people was watching. And when I started reaching out to people, asking, can you help me with employment, right? They didn't have a problem with referring me or letting me use them as a reference because they watched me go to this low-paying job every day. They knew I would work. And that's kind of like what spearheaded me to be where I'm at today.
Yeah, because I was listening to the guy, and he said that financial literacy is not a skill. It is actually a lifestyle. And once you prepare yourself for that lifestyle, it becomes easier. You know, what to do with money, how to handle it, what it really means, like you were saying about the credit thing. Now, you mentioned your son. A lot of times people say, well, you shouldn't tell your kids certain things. Have you been open with because I've seen you interact with him. You know, I follow you on social media and I see, you know, how you interact with him and the bond that you have with him. Does he know your story?
As he's maturing in life, because he's 17 now. When I came home, he was 11.
Okay.
I never kept anything from him. If he asks, I will tell. I have shared things with him when giving him life experiences, right? Okay. When talking to him about life experiences, I don't want to bolster anything because I've seen that backfire. I've seen kids want to try to live up to the reputation of their parent. I've seen that. Your father was a gunslinger, or he was a bank robber, or he was a get money dude. And I've seen that backfire. But with my son, he does know certain things about me. And, you know, like I said, as he's getting older and we have more conversations, I will share certain things with him based upon the topic of the conversation. But I think that he pretty much has a general idea that my dad had to be something before, because he's always said, every time we go somewhere, you know a lot of people. He told me that one day when I was taking him to Jamaica about a year. He told me when I was taking him to Jamaica about a year ago, right? We walked through the airport. We walked through BW Airport. And he said, man, you always know people. I said, I don't know nobody. We kicking, we giggle. And I swear, I can't make this up. A guy got off the plane. The plane was deplaning. They was deplaning. And the guy came off the plane and stopped and said, man, Booby, what's up? And he said, I told you, you know everybody. How you know somebody getting off the plane? So, you know, he got a general idea, you know, so, you know, but he has some thoughts, and if he ever comes to me with them, I will share.
Yeah, because that makes sense, because a lot of times, like you said, the kids, they will hear something about maybe like their older brother or their father. And when you start to explain it, and if a kid hears it, they see the glorification of it. It's like, wow, you know, that, you know, now I'm going to go out and I'm going to try to do this because I don't want to feel like I'm letting them down, not understanding that you're sharing this because you don't want them to go down that path, you know. But, you know,
exactly.
Yeah. So I completely understand that. Now, if you could talk to that 12-year-old kid that was on the porch before he decided to come off the porch and start, jumping right into it, what would you tell him?
Sound like I'm talking to myself because my first case that I caught, I was 13. It was 2 months
Okay.
after I turned 13, so damn near like identical, right? I don't think it. I don't think it would be so much what I can tell him. I think it would be more so what I would show him. I would show him something different because, like I said, I was seeing things that allowed me to be fascinated with that. Right? And I was off the porch before that case, because, like I said, I had a brother that was older, but that's when I caught my first case, right? So I think that I would tell them right now to, like, man, take your time and really understand life. And I think that I will pour into them on a regular, like I guess, have a conversation, and I will expose them to a lot, right? Because it's a lack of exposure in our communities, right? There's people in our community who've never been to Georgetown, right? And that's due in part to when we was growing up, Georgetown was the equivalent of Gallery Place, right?
Yes.
Or City Center or something like that. That was our version of that, right? They don't have to go there. My son is a prime example of that. Last summer, I took my son to Georgetown, and before we went, I said, "Hey man, we can go to Georgetown." Say, "You ever been to Georgetown?" And I never thought of it. It never crossed my mind. And he said, "No." So I said, "Man, we can go to Georgetown and get something to eat." So we rolled down there. We got something to eat. And, I showed him around. I showed him a few things. And just with that exposure, I was able to tell him and show him, like, listen, I spent $40 for me and you to eat in here. It was $40-something, whatever, give or take. And he gets allowance every week. He had a little girlfriend at the time. So I was like, "Hey, you can bring your girlfriend down here. The circulator bus comes down here, right?" He's like, "I always see it on the front of the circulator bus. It says Georgetown." So that was one of the places he wound up taking his little girlfriend. But just by exposure, he was able to expose her because she had never been.
Yeah.
So just think, the time that he was, them times that he went to Georgetown and just hung out, right? I knew that he wasn't in harm's way, in a high prosperity way, because anything can happen anyway, right?
Yeah.
I knew by him being in Georgetown that day that I knew that, hey, he's out the way. Not only is he out the way, him, his 2, 3, 4 friends that were with him, all of them out the way. So just think of it in that way, exposure. I think that I would really just tell the youth, like, man, when you get a chance, or tomorrow or next week when I get paid, how about, man, you go somewhere and just start taking them places to have their mind to think bigger than what they're seeing.
Yeah, because I remember listening to a commercial. They had this commercial about DC, and the guy said, "Yeah, I love DC. I ain't never been nowhere else." And I get it, you love the city, but the message that he gave was like, I've never been anywhere else. Like, there's this whole big world. And if you get so enamored with where you are, it's crazy to me because we have so many different opportunities now, but people don't want to take advantage of it. It's almost like they're afraid to step out of their comfort zone. And I think the younger you start with them, the easier it will become for them to not only get out and explore, but to be able to share that with their friends. And then as they get older, if they have children, it'll be easier to share it with their children. That, there's just a big old where you don't have to stay stuck in this one spot all the time. You don't have to spend your entire life right here.
Most definitely.
Yeah, like you said, you took your son to Jamaica.
Definitely, exposure is imperative. Yeah, I've taken him to Jamaica since I've been home. I've taken him to Jamaica. I took him to Bahamas. I took him to Miami. I took him to Orlando, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Virginia, North Carolina. I've taken him quite a few places since I've been home. Since I've been out here. Some places I've asked him, did he want to go? He told me no. I try not to, enforce anything that he don't want to do, because I don't want to get somewhere and wind up possibly being miserable. Who knows? You might like it, right? But I try to give him a freedom of choice in certain situations, and that's one of them where I just be like, okay, you got it. But he did just tell me he wanted to go to Chicago. Me and him just had a conversation. So I go back and forth out here frequently. So he said he wanted to go. He told me, yeah. So I think if I could get a little better, I'll take him out there.
Okay, that's all right. You know, and like I said, I watch you, Earl, um, the young lady with the guns down Friday,
Friday.
Hardy.
Yeah.
You know, I watch her,
Jawan
and
Hardy.
yes, I watch how you all are involved in the community and making sure that, and especially with the young people, you know, and I admire that. I think it is a wonderful thing, especially when they can see somebody that looks like them, who has gone through whatever they've gone through, but have decided that, okay, you don't have to be that way. You don't have to live that life. There's another life totally different that you can live, in a completely different direction that you can go in. You know, and you know, they don't have
Oh,
that
most
opportunity,
definitely.
but you are providing that for them. And I really
Yeah,
I
well, you
admire you
know,
all for
my whole life evolves. My whole life pretty much evolves around being in the community. Even what I do for a living, I'm involved with the community. I'm actually a mentor to youth in the juvenile justice system, right?
that. Okay.
Uh, if I'm not with my son, I'm if I'm not with my son, I'm sometimes with someone else's kid, right? In that situation. And then I have my nonprofit where I might engage kids as well as adults. So my whole life involves uh, interaction in the community in some form or fashion, and trying to give people opportunity that I might have at the present time. Whatever opportunity I have, I try to, you know, invite others to you know, partake in it for the most part, because what good is an opportunity that can benefit others if you don't share?
Yep. That is absolutely true. Now let's speak a little bit about how. How did that come about, and what is it that you all are doing?
Okay, HOWL is a nonprofit that I started when I was incarcerated. I was mentored by a guy for a short period, for a while. Good guy from this area. Was into real estate, wound up getting 20 something years for a real estate case. And his name was Charles Hall. And the guy, you know, you say, man, you set up a nonprofit, set up a for profit too. And, you know, he gave out a lot of game. And I wrote it down. And it's crazy because when I came home and started everything, I went through some of my stuff in prison, and I found that piece of paper that said start nonprofit, start for profit.
Mhm.
So the name How came, I was asleep one night, just woke up literally and was like, How? Helping others with life, HOWL. It just makes sense. It's easy, right?
Okay.
And it's
Right.
universal. You know, I feel it's universal. I don't want to be boxed in. You know,
Okay.
like my mission statement really with the acronym and the word spell out, helping others with life. You know, if I got the means, or if I can plug you with a person to help you with your current situation in a positive way, I try to do it. You know,
Okay.
I'm big on that. Like I don't try to cater to one demographic of people. And I know some people may feel like, well, that's too broad, but everybody needs help.
Oh yeah.
Old people, young people, middle-aged people, everybody needs help, right? Hey, who knows? I might have jackets for men today. I might have pajamas for kids tomorrow. You know, I don't believe in turning down nothing like that. Why would I? It doesn't even make sense to me. So
Mhm.
right now, the latest thing that we did was I have received a donation over the holiday, and I did a toy give back to Children's Hospital uh, for kids in the hospital who couldn't get out for the
Okay.
holiday. And of course, with the restrictions of COVID, of course, with the restrictions of the COVID pandemic, of course, the hospital really isn't admitting too many people into it for visits.
Right.
So I did a thing. I went and bought a lot of toys. I bought hundreds of dollars of toys. Another thing I did, I had a guy that came home from prison. I actually helped get out of prison. I testified on his behalf for him to be released. He was 30. He did 30 years. He's 46 years old. I was able to provide him with some of the essentials that he needed when he came home.
Okay.
Some of the things he most clothing, underclothes, things like that. I did that. Not only that, you know, I fed the homeless. I provided sleeping bags. I'm all over the place when it comes to that, you know. And uh, I also try to support the men that's still in prison with the donation. It wasn't earmarked; it was to my discretion. and it came from a foundation that was dealing with incarceration. So with some of the guys I noticed incarcerated, I try to spread it out and send them a few dollars on their books to help with some of the essentials they may need while they incarcerated. So I try to spread my hand. I just don't try to keep it in the community because they are our community too.
That's right.
Despite the
Because
fact that them being incarcerated, a lot of them, they're going to return, right?
Yep.
And that's exactly what I'm saying. And they're going to return. So just think, this guy did 30 years. I helped him get out of prison, but he did come home. 30 years is a long time, but he's back, right? He's a part of this community too. We forget about those guys. A lot of those guys we forgot about, out of sight, out of mind, you know.
Yeah.
And by me walking that walk, I'll never forget them. So if I can include them in anything that I'm doing that's coming through my organization, I try to include them. I actually also donated to the halfway houses in Baltimore. I had collaborated with NARC, I think it's Office, Neighborhood Office of Returning Citizens, which is headed by Irk Weaver. And I collaborated with Irk Weaver and bought hundreds of dollars of socks, t-shirts, drawers, and things like that. And he made care baskets around Christmas and took them up there to the halfway house to the guys who just came home who needed them. So, like, you know, that's just an example of how I can show you how it works from kids, all the way up to older people, right? I've even donated to older people. I had a donation that I did with it's a group that I was connected with moms who have lost their kids to gun violence. All the moms involved in this group, all of them had to bury kids due to gun violence. So I donated to them and had a meal catered for the moms. So it's some of the things that you know that you don't see that I don't post, but you know they're behind the scenes. But it's things like that that I'm also working on and doing also.
Yeah, because a lot of times you find people that they do it just for the camera. And so it's like, okay, you get the feeling that they're just doing it just to be seen, to be noticed. To me, it's more admirable for the ones that do it behind the scenes, the things that nobody ever, you know, it's not advertised. And the only way you find out about it is if one of the participants decides to share it. And then it's like, really? Like I remember Prince, you didn't find out that he was giving away all this money to all these different places until after he passed on, because he never talked about it. You know, you get a certain feeling when you do something for someone from your heart, you know, and when it comes from the heart, it means more, and it's more satisfying to you when you see them show that type of appreciation, and you're not doing it because you want to get kudos from somebody. You're doing it because it means something to you to help other people. And I remember hearing a quote from Martin Luther King that everybody can't be famous, but everybody can be great, because greatness comes through service. And that's what you are providing: service for the elderly, service for the youth, service for those that have come home that are incarcerated, also those that are still incarcerated, and those that are in the transition part. Because, you know, those that come home, they have to feel like somebody cares. Because if they don't, you know, then they go back to that same, they start to, you know, go back to down that same path and end up back, you know, incarcerated, because there was nobody there to say, hey man, look, I got you. I know what you're going through. I'm going to help you as much as I can. And I'm going to give you information to other people that can help you along the way. And then you start to feel like you know, it's actually meaning in life, and people actually do care, and they're not invisible. So again, I commend you for the job that you're doing, the service that you provide for everyone. And like I said, when I first saw your bio, I was like, man.
Before we move on and get off of this topic, I only pertaining to when you start talking about pictures and things like that, right? Is documentation purposes, right?
Right.
If you don't have your 501c, if you don't have your 501c3, you're trying to apply for it, right?
Okay.
One thing the IRS asks you is, what have you been doing?
Okay.
Right. And sometimes those pictures do help because you can submit those as part of your package. You feel what I'm
Okay.
saying?
Right. That part I understand, but
so is it no. I'm putting it out there because some of the viewers agree with you, but I don't want them to lose that opportunity by trying,
okay.
sometimes be so secretive. I was raised in the era where we didn't take pictures. It's something I had to get used to.
Yeah, they said something about if you take pictures, it does something.
I want to share. You going to jail? Yeah. So my thing is this: I want to share that information also for a person who may view this right now or may view this in the future. That hey, those pictures do count for something sometimes.
Okay.
I try to, whenever I do something, I try not to catch it. I personally try not to capture anyone's face. Right.
Okay.
I try not to video anyone. No live videos. I try to take pictures from an angle where if you see me doing something or I have somebody take pictures from an angle, you won't see the person's face. You may see me, their back may be turned or something like that, right? If you look at some of my pictures, they're like that. And I do that for that sole reason. I try to have some respect, but I also try to document because sometimes people do donate to you and do things for you on your organization.
And they want to know where their money.
They may have not even donated, but they want to see what you are doing. Yeah, so don't get discouraged. I just ask that if you're doing this work, to have some respect, and that's what I would say. If you have some respect for a person, unless that person tell you, "Hey man, let's do this," or "Let's take a picture," or "I'm cool with it." Have some respect. Don't just I'm not with that just running up on a person with a can, putting it in their face. You'll never see me do that. I'm not that type of person. But it's just a balancing act, right? Because like I said, people give you their money. Like when I gave you on my nonprofit page, we had 100 bikes that we gave out to 3 schools a couple of years ago.
Okay.
I most definitely wanted the people to see that we gave these bikes out because we ran a promo asking for donations, right? So people was able to see, okay, they did do the bikes. So when you come up in the future and you ask for something, a person is feeling more that you're more credible as opposed to a person say, "Oh, I gave out the bikes," but you might have did, but they more comfortable. So it's a balancing act also. So I just wanted to make sure that
I just learned something. I just I never looked at it from that perspective. So thank you. I appreciate that. That's something that I can take and maybe use later on down the road myself. So I appreciate that. You always, if you listen, you learn. So
man, listen, I had to learn it. When I first started this work, when I came home, I was like you, ain't taking no pictures. Nah. Like, man, I get it, man. I don't care if nobody know. You feel what I'm saying?
Right.
But like somebody gave me the game and the attorney that I used who did my paperwork, like, well, do you got any pictures or anything? And I was like, I actually do, and it made sense. And I got my 501c3, or whatever, I got the status from the IRS, and I do believe that may have most definitely played a part in it because that's part of the application process. They ask you what kind of work have you already been doing with your organization.
Okay. Well, like I said, that was an eye opener. That was something that I just learned. So, like I said, I appreciate it. At this point, I want to see if anybody has, anybody in the audience have any questions. Please feel free to ask them. I will put them up so I can share them with Mr. King here. And while we're waiting for questions, I think that was. I went through. I had a whole list of. I got my little list of questions, and I think I've gone through them. But like I said, you all are doing great work in the community. It's good to see that. I remember when I was growing up, it was a different era. People could, there was a village. Everybody, and like you said, everybody knew everybody, and everybody, you could chastise somebody's child, and the neighbor had the permission to do whatever they needed to do. And then when your parents got home, it was, the same thing. But nowadays, you really don't want to say nothing to some of these kids because, I liken it to, and I say it is the generation of the babies that had babies. Nobody taught them, how to parent, because, they were born to young parents, and then they didn't have any guidance. And so they passed it on to their kids. And so, you're very careful about what you say to children nowadays, because they'll curse you out before the parents will. And so I think it's great what you're doing, especially like with your son, understanding that, he's coming along in this social media era. And it's like, okay, you know what, bruh? I get it, but I need you to focus on this. And it's good that you're taking him all these different places and exposing him to things that a lot of these other kids don't get to see.
Well, I believe this. Most definitely, it's a different day and time. Some of these kids are, of course, disrespectful, but we had disrespectful kids in every generation. I don't care what time you look at it. There was always disrespectful. There was always disrespectful kids. But I think what the problem is today is we like to project our own past onto them now instead of meeting where they are. Right? I think a lot of it is we're talking at them and not to them. Right? Instead of telling them, you're stupid, or you wild as a mug. Why did you do that? That's stupid. Or, man, what was you thinking about? It's a better way to find out what they was thinking about. Sometimes, man, what's going on, man? What was that all about? I mean, I'm just telling you from experience, because I deal with kids on a regular basis every day, right? And I deal with kids who deal with everything from murder to stolen cars, right? I got some of the most treacherous kids in the city, all the way down to the most harmless kids, but all of them are in the judicial system under the juvenile family court system in DC Superior Court. And I can honestly say, I have never really had a real problem with disrespect with none of them. But I think most definitely because of my background, but also because of my approach, because I've seen guys who have similar backgrounds, right, but don't know how to approach them, and they conflict, they bump heads, right? Because the other guy may be telling them, man, you stupid, or man, you wild young, like, nah, understand why Shorty trying to break in that car. Like, try to figure out what makes him have that train of thought, right? And when you start to talk to someone, sometimes they hungry, they ain't got nowhere to go, they ain't no food. Their mother might not be home, their father might not be home. They pretty much fending for themselves, right? And you looking at them saying he 15, 14, 16, he all right, but at the end of the day, hey, he really may not be. Someone just put something on the screen I can't see. Okay. I will. I promise you, I will.
Yeah, keep blessing and motivating. Yeah, and someone else said, "Hey Charles, keep up the good work." I really, like I said, anybody that is doing positive things in the community, and because you went through what you went through, and people say, well, if I'd have known then what I know now, well, you had to go through certain things in order to get to a certain point. So had you not gone through what you went through, you wouldn't be able to share what you're sharing with other people, and knowing how to help them. Like you said, meeting them where they are, because a lot of these kids they're taught, if they come at you, you come at them. So it's however you approach them is what most times
some of them are.
Go ahead.
Some of them aren't even taught. That's the crazy part about it. Some of them just out of human preservation and self-preservation react in a certain way. Like you'll be surprised how good and genuine some of these young dudes that are feared are when you get to know them or you get around them. They'll be willing to lay their life down for you, right? Just because you really took the opportunity to get to know them and get to really find out who they are, right? Because everyone's passing judgment, right? Everybody has this preconceived notion, and it's all based upon the fear mongering, right? The same way the news portrayed people back in the days, crack dealer, murderer, shooter. What do you think social media do to these kids now? When you can go in there all day and see these youngins. So when you walk outside and you see somebody that fit the description of somebody that just killed somebody on social media and they post a video, you ain't gonna say nothing to them.
Yeah.
And they not even that type of person, but you know, you get these barriers in between you and those people, and what wind up happening is that's where the disconnect comes. I say, I honestly tell anybody to watch this video, that's watching or will watch this video. If you know some young dudes, speak to them. If they hanging out in front of your house or they on your block, even if they breaking the law, speak. Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, you know, because
and keep it moving.
I find myself doing
that. You ain't
that.
got to get in their business. You ain't got to get in their business. Yeah, man, you'll be surprised how far that'll take you. You got a car in your community. I guarantee you won't nobody else breaking your car, damn near. I guarantee you, because that's what they gonna say. Man, that's daily car. Nah, it might be somebody coming around and trying to break in your car that don't even know you and don't know them. But guess what they gonna say? Holmes, man, get away from that car, because they are going to, because out of respect. Even when I was in the street, I respected the people in my community, despite my choices of breaking the law. Before I stopped hanging on the block, when I was on the block, breaking the law, doing what I was doing, I had respect for certain people in my community. When they came through, hey, hold up real quick. I feel somebody in the middle of doing something, hold up real quick. Here come Miss such and such, or here come Mr. Such and such. Those morals and principles don't go away. They respect somebody, right? And if you're not engaging in them, if you're not engaging with them, how do you expect them to respect you? The problem also here is that we got so many people that's migrating to this city that they don't connect with the youth here. They don't connect with the locals here. It's them and then it's us, right? And I can show you a prime example of it's them and then it's us, right? They can come here, they can live good. They don't have to worry about no crime, no nothing. We had almost 200 murders last year, 199, 198. Right? How many of those people was dignified? How many of those people was transplants?
I don't know. How many?
How is it that we had probably 200 murders, damn near everybody's from native Washingtons?
That's true.
I don't know, but I'm pretty sure the percentage is very high, right? Because a person from out of town he's not getting killed by another person because he don't even know you have a problem with you. But you'll be surprised if you spark up a conversation, and it could be a two-way street. You know, sometimes we got to instill in them youngins and the youth too, and some adults, because we can be ignorant too and tell them, man, talk to your neighbor. Dude live right there. He got a 30-year mortgage on that house. He ain't going to They just took the for sale sign out of the yard. You know, hey, talk to Mark. You never know.
Yeah, that's true.
You smoke weed. Hey, it's a weed-friendly city. Mark might smoke weed too. You know, don't get it misconstrued because Mark don't speak to you and Mark do his business in his house, right? Mark might got some of the same issues that you got, but if you don't speak to Mark, how do you even build that relationship? You feel what I'm saying? It's just saying hi people and how you doing and things like that. Even in the community that I live in right now, I still live in Washington. Even in the community I live in right now, I'm not from this community. I'm not born and raised in this community, but I have started meeting the people in my community. I do speak when I say, hey, how you doing? You know, I had an older lady who was living in my community. She wound up passing like last year. What can you lose? I mean, 9 times out of 10, a person ain't gonna be disrespectful. A hi can turn into just a hi every time you see them. And who knows where that'll lead to? Even if it's just a hi, you understand that they are not an enemy.
Yeah,
they're friendly.
Sometimes those things turn into business opportunities. So you know, you never know. You know,
they turn into all types of things, business opportunities, life-saving things, right? Who knows it? You might fall down one day and this person called an ambulance for you, because nowadays you fall out, a person's video record you before they call the ambulance.
And here's one, Charles. This just shows that life doesn't stop just because you were locked up. I appreciate you for sharing your story and for making a difference in our communities. That is my sentiment exactly.
You're welcome. You know? I most definitely listen. I'm committed to this into the last breath of my body. Like, this isn't a fad. It isn't a get rich scheme. You won't get rich doing community work. I promise you. You might live comfortable, but you will not be rich. It isn't about money, because if it was about money, I could be chasing a whole bunch of other things to get money. It's about money. It's about my commitment to pouring back into my community and try to help rebuild some of the things that I damaged. And I know that I was once part of the problem, so now I'm trying to be part of the solution.
And that's a great thing.
I actually just had an interview the other day that's going to allow me. I actually had an interview the other day with an organization to allow me to be in a position to do more for the community from a work standpoint, and hopefully, you know, I'm blessed with that opportunity so that I can really go back into some of these communities where a lot of people can't go, won't go, just refuse to go. You know, I'm the type of person that I recognize it when I see it, and if I recognize it, they recognize it when they see it,
Right.
right? And a lot of these communities, I know a lot of the people that's in the community. So when I go into the community, somebody always be like, "Oh, that's such and such," or "I know his mother," or "I know this little dude brother," "I know his big homie," or "I was locked up with this person's uncle," or whatever, so on and so forth. So my ability to engage in certain atmospheres and environments is a whole lot different than many people who may be in positions to help but can't help because they don't have those relationships.
All right. Well, again, I thank you for coming through. I would definitely be in touch. At some point, we'll get you back on here. You know, once you see what happens with the opportunity that's coming up. But I'll definitely be following you on social media because, like I said, I admire what you do. Um, you're doing great things, and it's really, really appreciated. And again, thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your story. But I will definitely be, watching out.
Okay, most definitely. I appreciate you for having me. If anybody want to reach out to me, I'm on Instagram at Helping Others with Life. Uh, my website is HOWL, HOWL, DMV.com. If you want to collaborate with me, if I can help you in any form or fashion, if you can help me, because it ain't just about me helping people, right? Sometimes I got to get the help in order to help. So if you
Okay.
want to help me in some form or fashion, you can
Well, the
reach out
website
to
I have
me.
all the
I'm open to this.
Yeah, it's down in the description of the live. So I posted it there. Um, I'll put it on my community tab once I go back and go through the video and stuff like that. Make sure that people get the information. But again, thank you, and
Okay, no
I'll
problem.
be seeing you
You're
around.
welcome. Okay, anytime,
All right, my
man.
brother. You take care
Anytime. You
now.
already know, man. I told you when you first reached out to me.
I appreciate it. I'll talk to you. Alrighty, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging in here with me. I greatly appreciate it. Again, Mr. King's information is located in the description of the video. If you're interested in following him and reaching out, um, he's there. Uh, it like I said, anybody can be famous, and if you're doing this that type of work to be famous or for money, like he said, that's not what it's about. For him, it's genuine. He's been through the struggle. He's lived a through that part. And growing up in DC in the late 80s, early 90s, when the crack epidemic was at its peak, thank you, Nisi. It was crazy. I was older by that time and had started having kids, but like I said, it touched everybody. There were very few families in of people that were native Washingtonians that the crack epidemic didn't affect. Either you knew somebody, somebody was selling it, or you knew somebody that was using it, or you knew somebody that got killed because of it. And for him to live through that and come out on the good side, because so many. There was a time when the murder rate was nothing to have close to 500 people murdered in a year, and I think that went on for at least, I think it was almost 5 consecutive years of 500 homicides. It was crazy. But again, I thank you all for coming through. G-Fam, lovely Nisi. Hey, Cindy, the keto girl. Deanna Ricks was in the house. Of course, Aunt Maddie's here. Sonia Waddy. I thank each and every one of y'all for coming through. I had a couple people come through on Facebook. Cutie Chewy, Helena, Tracy Johnson, Vanessa, and of course my cousin Thomas. He was here. So I thank everybody. I will see you all next Tuesday at 7 o'clock. I'll be live again on Thursday. I have some good news about the van adventure. So I'm going to talk about that on Thursday night. But until then, remember, be happy on purpose, and know that I believe in you too. Peace.